Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching The World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines of the hour. Reversing his earlier position, President Donald Trump now urges Republicans in Congress to vote for the release of the controversial Epstein files. Trump says he has nothing to hide as pressure builds over the documents. As tensions rise between President Trump and the BBC, the broadcaster's chairman says they are determined to fight the defamation case. He calls Trump's lawsuit baseless as the dispute intensifies. President Donald Trump says the United States may soon enter into dialogue with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The comment comes as tensions between Washington and Caracas continue to rise. Amid a massive US military buildup in the Caribbean, the Pentagon says American forces have struck another alleged drug-laden boat in the Pacific. The attack reportedly kills 3 people as Washington intensifies its counter-narcotics operations. The US immigration crackdown sharpens as federal agents arrest 81 people in Charlotte on their first day of operations. Border Patrol officials say many of those detained had significant criminal or immigration records. White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett has said that there have been mixed signals in the job market and that the labour market could be slowing down. This could further weaken Federal Reserve's key interest rates. Japan's economy has shrunk almost 2% in the 3 months through September as a drop in exports in the face of US tariffs. This indicates the first contraction in 6 quarters. Leftist candidate Jeanette Jara takes a slim lead with 27% in Chile's first-round vote ahead of far-right rival Jose Antonio Cast. Despite trailing, Cast is still favoured in the runoff as crime and immigration shape a deadly divided electorate. Those are the headlines of the hour, and US President Donald Trump has called on Republicans in Congress to vote for the release of the files related to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Trump's post on his Truth Social came after House Speaker Mike Johnson earlier said that he believed a vote on releasing Justice Department's documents in the Epstein case should help put to rest allegations that Trump had any connection to Epstein's abuse and trafficking of underage girls. Although Trump and Epstein's photographs are available, the president suggests that the two fell out before Epstein's convictions, denying any knowledge of his heinous crimes. Meanwhile, emails released last week by a House committee showed that Epstein believed Trump knew about the girls, though it was not clear what the phrase meant. Trump, who has recently dismissed the Epstein files as a Democratic smear campaign, has since instructed the Department of Justice to investigate prominent Democrats' ties to Epstein. Andrew Latham joins us now. He's an international relations expert and he joins us live from Minneapolis. Andrew, this is the one story that Donald Trump wants to go away, but seemingly does not. And now this is a huge U-turn for the US president to say, now let House Republicans vote for the release of these files and let the people see them, and so Donald Trump gets rid of all these allegations. Why do you think Donald Trump is now urging these Republicans to release all of these Epstein-related files?
Well, I think most fundamentally it boils down to making a virtue of necessity. He really doesn't have much of a choice. Every time he resists or supports those who would vote to not release them, he looks guilty, he looks bad. So the vote is not going to go his way. It has exposed fissures within the Republican Party. Nobody who wasn't involved with Epstein wants to be tarred with that particular brush. and they would be seen as such if they were to vote against releasing these files. So you put all of that together, and neither the Republicans in general nor Donald Trump in particular really have the grounds upon which to resist this release. And everything they do that makes it look like they're resisting this release makes them look guilty. So I think making a virtue of necessity is what it boils down to.
And of course, as you said, Donald Trump in some of these mails and other evidence that's been put out looks pretty implicated in this. We've seen a birthday note that was written for Jeffrey Epstein. We've also seen allegations that Donald Trump, from the emails, had dinner with Jeffrey Epstein on Thanksgiving, on his first Thanksgiving in the White House. However, Trump says the two fell out before Epstein's convictions. Is there any way Donald Trump can handle these files? Are these files, how are they kind of locked up? How are they maintained in regards to the fact that will we get everything here if the House does vote to release them?
Well, we're likely to get at least a lightly and maybe even a heavily redacted version. There will be people who are innocent, people who are victims, whom I'm sure are named or otherwise identified in these files, and they have a right to privacy, and I think the Department of Justice in Washington will respect that. What it will not respect, though, is the quote-unquote innocence of President Trump. He is the reason why these files have such prominence. He is the reason why people want, one of the main reasons why people want them released. And the real question to my mind is this a casual friendship that Trump and Epstein had? Is it more than a casual friendship? Or was Trump really intimately involved in this shameless and seedy business of procuring young women, underage girls, for sexual favors? If the files reveal that, I think not even Donald Trump's level of bombast is going to save him. If, however, he can spin it that, oh yeah, I had Thanksgiving dinner with this guy, no big deal, and the files reveal nothing more than that, I think he can ride out the storm. We'll just have to wait and see, and it looks like we are going to see in the not too distant future what these files reveal.
Yes, Andrew, do stay with us as we have further updates coming out of the United States, but this time we turn to foreign policy, and US President Donald Trump has indicated that the US may engage in talks with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, even as the US military ramps up its presence in the Caribbean. The announcement comes amid rising tensions between the two countries, with the US deploying warships and troops to the region and conducting operations targeting alleged drug smuggling boats linked to Venezuela. Trump's administration has also accused Maduro of leading a narcotics cartel, and the US is set to designate Maduro's cartel Del Sols as a foreign terrorist organization. Despite military options being considered, Trump has suggested that diplomacy might still be on the table, with discussions potentially aimed at resolving the ongoing crisis in Venezuela. Andrew, President Trump is considering talks with Nicolas Maduro, according to him, but of course this happens while simultaneously deploying warships and troops near the country. Is this diplomacy, or is this coercion dressed up as diplomacy?
Well, it's both. We have Americans have a word for this, a term for this: gunboat diplomacy. We would like to negotiate, but if not, we have this gigantic stick sailing just off the coast, and this goes back at least almost 2 centuries now. This tradition with the United States dealing with its Latin American and Caribbean neighbors. It remains to be seen whether this is going to work. I think what Trump really wants, he's not that much interested in narcotics and the drug side of things. That's a pretext, I think. He's really interested in limiting the growing influence of Russia, China, and Iran, of all countries, in Maduro's Venezuela. And so that depends on how deeply, how dependent Maduro is on the support of those three patrons. If he's very interested, he's not going to turn his back on them. He doesn't want a shooting war. Maduro does not want a shooting war at this point, but nor really does Donald Trump. This can't end well for either party ultimately. So that means there's scope for negotiated settlement, or at least a détente. We'll just have to wait and see if they're capable enough and clever enough to negotiate that kind of stand down.
Yes, Andrew Latham, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's always a pleasure to have you here on the programme and hear what you have to say. We now move on to our next story. And the British Broadcasting Corporation's chair says it is determined to fight any legal action from US President Donald Trump following an incident in which the broadcaster admitted to wrongly editing a video of one of his speeches. Trump has later indicated that he is likely to sue the BBC this week for as much as $5 billion. The issue stems from the BBC splicing together separate excerpts of a speech, creating the impression he was inciting the January the 6th, 2021 riot. The BBC's chair, Samir Shah, sent a personal letter to Trump apologising for the edit. However, the broadcaster maintains that there is no basis for a defamation claim. In an internal email to staff, Shah acknowledged ongoing speculation about potential legal action and the associated costs or settlements. He emphasised the BBC's commitment to protecting the public funding it receives from licence fee payers and reiterated that its position has not changed. Okay, this comes after the BBC, of course, edited a speech during January the 6th speech in front of the Capitol building, which then led to riots. Of course, the death of 2 people after Donald Trump lost the election to Joe Biden in 2021. Some claims that Donald Trump incited this riot. However, the BBC, in their investigative show, Panorama, they broadcast and spliced together, editing 2 pieces of footage that were as much as 50 minutes apart. And so Donald Trump has said that he is going to sue the BBC, funded, of course, by the UK taxpayer and adverts from around the world, for $5 billion. Of course, this comes as the BBC has seen enormous scrutiny over the years from numerous scandals, including many related to the Israel-Gaza conflict and others due to internal matters, due to its personality, both on screen and off it. So, of course, the BBC has not shone its glory upon itself when it comes to scandals as of recently. But the BBC's chair has said that it's going to fight Donald Trump's defamation case and says that these allegations of defamation are baseless. Of course, we will bring you everything as it comes through here on NewsX World. But Donald Trump has indicated that he's likely to sue the BBC this week for as much as $1 to $5 billion for splicing those excerpts together on that day in 2021, where he was speaking to a riled up crowd of supporters in front of the Capitol building on January the 6th after he lost that election to Joe Biden. Alison Mutler joins us now. She's a former Associated Press bureau chief. She joins us live from Bucharest in Romania. Alison, thank you very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. How much of a serious case of this is this for the BBC? Up to $5 billion worth of a defamation act. What kind of money does the BBC have in order to defend it, etc.?
Well, first of all, this is a political statement by Donald Trump, because we're talking about an enormous sum of money, and the idea is to intimidate the BBC and show them a lesson. But not only the BBC, it's a message to all broadcasters and big press organisations that do not. I'm not going to say don't toe the line, because they did make a big mistake, the BBC here, but it's a way to punish the media that he is hostile to, and in this case, he did catch them out, but he's showing no dignity or elegance with this. He's trying to do political point scoring here. So he's not doing one of those trials where I want a symbolic, $100 or something. He wants it to be punitive, and he wants headlines around the world. And the BBC will have to take this very seriously. But my question will be, Where is this case going to be tried? I imagine in the United States, but I'm not sure. It might be in Britain as well. And defamation, how do you prove that? Particularly, what is in the BBC's favour is the fact that they did issue an unreserved and full apology. But the aim is to score political points and also intimidate the BBC and anyone else, any other major broadcaster that would think would make a mistake of this size. So obviously the BBC has to take this seriously, but they'd have to think, where will this case be fought? They themselves know, of course, it is political, and whether a court would rule in Donald Trump's favour is quite hard to say. I would say no court would, particularly in the United States, which has very liberal laws for the media, for libel, defamation. The UK is more difficult. Particularly for libel, but this isn't a libel case, this is a defamation case. So I have to see, at the moment he's just talking huge figures, where this goes and where a case will be filed and if there's a trial where it will be, but it's political, number one.
Yeah, of course, and as you've said, the BBC has admitted that it edited this speech correctly. It ordered a full apology. It gave the president a full apology, and insists that it didn't defame the president. In legal terms, does an admitted editing error here automatically equal defamation?
I think it will be much harder for a court to rule that there was defamation when the organisation, in this case the BBC, has issued a full apology. That will definitely count in their favour. But, you know, as I said, Donald Trump wants to score political points out of this. And he, as we know, he is on the warpath and has been for very many years, ever since his first term in office, with the media, what he would call the liberal media, fake news. He invented that term, etc., etc. Yeah. Any media whose narrative he doesn't agree with.
Yes, Alison, do stay with us as we have further updates coming out of the United States coming up next. In a major escalation of the Trump administration's immigration crackdown, U.S. Border Patrol agents arrested at least 81 people in Charlotte, North Carolina over the weekend. The arrests, which took place in a 5-hour span on Saturday, were led by Gregory Bovino, a senior border official. Many of those arrested had significant criminal and immigration histories. The mass deportation efforts have drawn strong backlash, with protests erupting in Charlotte and accusations of racial profiling and illegal detentions. North Carolina Governor Josh Stein condemned the raids, stating that the aggressive tactics were sowing fear and division in local communities. The raids were a direct response to local authorities' refusal to comply with federal detainer requests. Alison joins us once again. 81 arrests in just 5 hours of this operation. What are your thoughts on how the Trump administration is conducting these immigration raids? Of course, you bear in mind that these ICE agents frequently enter communities masked. They arrest people, some say, in a forceful and violent manner. Is this designed to send a political message, as well as, of course, launching this, as Donald Trump campaigned on, the biggest deportation plan in American history?
Oh, yes, this is a huge political show. It's one of the planks that Donald Trump was elected on, which is deporting or getting rid of illegal immigrants. And as we will see with his latest deportations, we're not talking about, you know, rule of law, investigations, etc., calls for, you know, for appeal. We're talking about a big show. You have the federal agents coming in dressed in a way that does, you know, it shows authority at the lightest, but it also, as you said, can instill fear into local residents and division and tension. But that is part of the big show. You know, we're coming here and we're getting rid of these people, and ICE are coming in, and they are above the state lines. They are above the state authority. And there's no time for subtleties or nuance about, is this person here illegally or not? They're being sort of marched out. They're being straight away deported. Maybe some of them are there illegally. Maybe some of them have committed misdemeanors. I don't know. But this isn't about subtleties. This isn't about weeding out some from others. This is about a show of force, and this is designed to appeal to Donald Trump's MAGA, Make America Great Again camp, and also show that he's doing good on his electoral promises.
Alison Mutler, as always, a pleasure to speak to you here on NewsX World. Thank you for taking the time. We now move over to South Asia for our next story. And in a statement, the chief advisor of the government of Bangladesh and interim leader Mohammed Yunus hailed the ex-PM Sheikh Hasina's court ruling, declaring that it affirmed the principle that no one, regardless of their power, is above the law. The chief advisor emphasized that the victims were not statistics, but citizens, many of whom were students and parents peacefully demanding their rights. The advisor further commented on the importance of restoring trust between citizens and their government, acknowledging that accountability is just the beginning. The statement concluded with a confident message about Bangladesh's future, one that values human rights, justice and the rule of law, signalling that true justice would ultimately prevail. Of course, we will continue to bring you all the updates coming out of Bangladesh as we get them right here. But next, we move over to East Asia, and Japan's economy has shrunk almost 2% in the last 3 months through September, as a drop in exports in the face of US tariffs resulted in the first contraction in 6 quarters. According to data released by the government, that Japan's gross domestic product on a quarter-by-quarter basis slipped 0.4%, the first contraction in 6 quarters. As Trump implemented higher tariffs on imports from many countries earlier this year, businesses ramped up their exports to try and beat higher costs, which in result inflated some of the earlier data for exports. Meanwhile, some analysts say that a 9.4% quarter-on-quarter drop in private residential investment, which translates to a 32.5% drop in annualized terms, was mainly due to revisions of Japan's building code that caused housing starts to plunge after they took effect in April, the start of Japan's fiscal year. Tariffs are a major blow to Japan's export-reliant economy, led by powerful automakers like Toyota Motor Corp, although many manufacturers have moved production abroad due to the impact from tariffs and other trade controls. We finish with a story from the entertainment world next, and Tom Cruise finally got to hold his own Oscar on the Hollywood stage at the Governor's Award. The 63-year-old Cruise, a 4-time Oscar nominee who has never won the award, was chosen for work in films from Risky Business to 2 Top Gun movies and the Mission Impossible franchise. He has also become a prominent champion for the movie business as it faces competition from streaming and social media. Honorary Oscar statuettes were handed out to Cruise and 3 others selected by the Board of Governors of the Academy of Motion Pictures and Sciences. Accepting his award, Cruise talked about how seeing movies in a theatre impressed him as a child, while also emphasising on the power of cinema. Let's in fact take a listen in to his winning speech.
Price of admission, when I didn't have enough, I just figured out a damn other way to get in that theater, So cinema, that takes me around the world. And it helps me to appreciate and respect differences. It shows me also our shared humanity, how alike we are in so many ways. And no matter where we come from, in that theater, we laugh together, we feel together, we hope together, we dream together. And that is the power of this art form. And that's why it matters. That is why it matters to me.
And that is a wrap on America 360. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates.
What we can do